Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to break out your terminally online lawyer books because today we're here to talk about some lawsuits, baby. And this involves video games, of course. We're gamers over here. We game! And we do it very, very well. So to kind of put things into context, do you guys remember a lawsuit that kind of went viral involving Nintendo and Pocket Pair? Or, if you guys are more familiar with the game that they made that Nintendo sued them for, Pal World. Pal World is a game that looks a lot like Pokemon, right? Nintendo owns a majority of the Pokemon IP, and when they ended up suing Pocket Pair, they claimed it infringed on their intellectual property.
Nintendo is suing Pal World. Nintendo loves smacking down lawsuits like it's their nuts on the table. Every single chance that they can get to sue somebody or to cease and desist something, Nintendo will absolutely do it. Nintendo has announced that it, together with the Pokemon Company, is suing Pal World developer Pocket Pair for what it says are multiple infringements on patent rights. There is a big difference between a patent infringement and a copyright infringement. A patent infringement basically says that, hey, we have the right to hold onto this particular idea of something, and if you develop an idea that is just a little bit too similar, then that could potentially lead to a patent infringement.
This led to so much speculation among people. Tons of creators were talking about it, and it led a lot in the discussion of what qualifies as rightfully shutting down a project that's infringing on an IP versus throwing money to sue down a project that you don't like because it's doing well and it's present within your field. It was a genuine conversation that a lot of people were having around the time. I don't know if I want to call it a trend, but for lack of a better term, this kind of started an entire trend where a lot of people were noticing companies that were taking somewhat legal matters into a new game that comes out that they probably don't like. A similar thing also happened with Schedule 1 as well, which I have already done a video on and talked about at length. But honestly, I think that one was probably worse in general because from everything I found, it was just being investigated for being a game about drugs. I'm not kidding. So those are the big two that come to mind when I think of companies suing other companies based on the games. And it seems now we have 3 gaming lawsuits to talk about, as Sony has joined the fray as well. Now, as you guys know, Sony is one of the biggest AAA companies right now in the gaming space, alongside companies like Nintendo and Xbox. Oh. Maybe we'll take a rain check on that one for now. Regardless, you get the point. It's a popular company and a lot of people know them, particularly for the PS5, which, by the way, I just have to make a daily reminder that the PS5 has no games despite being out for 5 years. Alright, I'm sorry, we can get back on topic. It is a moment of weakness, I promise. Despite that though, Sony has been very successful, churning out a bunch of classic franchises in their library. Games like God of War, Uncharted, Astro Bot, which is a fairly new one, Ratchet and Clank and all of them, you get the point. Now, one of its more recent exclusives, and a series that they love very much, is a little franchise called Horizon Zero Dawn, which you may have heard of, you may have not, but just in case you haven't. Horizon is a science fiction action role-playing game series developed by Guerrilla Games and published by Sony for the PS4, PS5, Windows, and Nintendo Switch. The series follows the adventures of Aloy, a young huntress living in a post-apocalyptic world overrun by zoomorphic robots. The series contains 2 games, Horizon Zero Dawn and Horizon Forbidden West, and as of May 2013, the franchise has sold over 32 million units worldwide. If I were to explain the Horizon series in the best way that I can, I would kind of say it's basically Sony's Nepo baby. It's like they're pirate software, or Hassan Piker as one would say. There is so much glazing given to this franchise, bro. They love it. They really love it. They have an entire whole ass Lego game of the series, which I don't even know where that conversation even began. And the first game even got a remaster. Keep in mind, this game came out in 2017. Why does there need to be a remaster? Now, this franchise is going to be the main focal point in today's video, because this is the game that Sony had sued for and is claimed that they're being infringed upon. But you're probably asking yourself, what is the game that's doing the stealing? Well, that's a title called Light of Motiram. In a world overrun by colossal machines, explore the vast open world. That sounds hella redundant, what the hell? Build your base of operations, advance technology, train mechanimals, and take on formidable bosses. Starting from the primitive primitive age towards a new path of development, defy the machination, and survive the mechanimals. So this Light of Motiram game is a title that is currently being made by Polaris Quest, which is a subsidiary of Tencent, which, just to be clear, it does not have a great reputation. I have no idea why, and it's not really important to the story, but just know people do not like Tencent at all. Now, the first time that Light of Motiram was shown off was back in November of 2024 with its teaser trailer. And let's just say, people clocked just how similar looking the games were very early doors.
We recently got a teaser trailer for the upcoming Light of Motiram, and wow, if imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, then Guerrilla Games must be absolutely giddy. This couldn't look more like a Horizon clone if it was made in a cauldron using a strand of Aloy's DNA. I mean, this game seemingly has it all. A red-headed female protagonist, robot dinosaurs, machine mounts, and tribes and settlements that look like they were ripped right out of the Forbidden West. Even the soundtrack strikes a lot of the same notes and tones.
And as you guys can see, like, a lot of the game had stylistically looked very similar to the Horizon franchise, but it wasn't just the look of the game that was similar, but the music used in the trailer is very similar, and even the main character was just Aloy but hotter. Like, that's literally what it was. And that wasn't even it, apparently, according to comments under that video. So it says, opening scene is literally Meridian. Music has the exact same tonality as Horizon. There's post-apocalyptic tribes. The mount animation is the same as Aloy on a charger, and the character design is very similar too. Also, just a quick side note, this comment section is so funny, dude. Vertical allowed east. Vertical allowed east. Horizon, zero originality. Copy your homeworks, but change it so I don't get caught behavior. Horizon forbidden Temu. Horizon, zero chance of this actually releasing. Horizon, zero social credit. Winnie the Pooh edition. What? Winnie the Pooh?
Can I stay a little longer? We don't have this much honey at home.
Apparently, they even copied the lens flare for the robo animals, apparently. Now, real quick, if you haven't noticed, and I just want to make this clear for transparency's sake, I have never played Horizon Zero Dawn. I do have the complete edition in my Steam library, and I can play it anytime. Probably never going to be played until like 2029 or something. A lot of the stuff we're going to be talking about is like gameplay elements, stuff in the game, and things of that nature. Besides kind of the main character, who a lot of people meme on, I don't know much about Horizon Zero Dawn. I'm sure it's a fine series. A lot of the stuff that I'm going to be talking about is going off of what other people that have played the game noticed with the similarities between Light of Motiram and Horizon. I just wanted to make that transparency just out the gate. So getting back to it, you get the point, right? The game is very similar to Horizon. The art style is similar. This is even coming from someone who's never played the games. I even saw some very huge similarities when I first saw this trailer. The aesthetic is very similar. The enemies are similar. And even the trailer itself had the same beats and patterns as a previous trailer to Horizon Zero Dawn. And people even did like a side-by-side comparison of the two. So I think it's pretty undeniable that the game is taking stuff from Horizon. Allegedly in Minecraft. I have to say it. It's legal, guys. It's legal. I know. I hate allegedly. I hate you. I hate you. How about that? I hate you. I hate you. No. Now already, back when people first reacted to the trailer, they were very much expecting Sony to do something because the two games were very similar, and others were even going as far to label Light of Motiram just a blatant ripoff of Horizon. But since it had been a while, people really didn't think any action would be taken and Sony would just let the game rock. Yeah, that definitely wasn't happening. They were drafting something. They were drafting. And now we get into Sony's lawsuit on Light of Motiram, and by extension, Tencent. So from what I understand, Sony had first filed this complaint on July 25th, 2025. And fast forward about 3 days later, and a report would go out by Reuters, where they would get the scoop that Sony is in fact officially suing Tencent. Specifically, they list the lawsuit for being a copyright and trademark infringement of Sony's intellectual property, labeling Light of Motiram as a quote-unquote slavish clone of its games that copies several distinctive Horizon elements and threatens to confuse buyers. I won't lie to you guys, this is the first time I've ever heard the word slavish or slavish. I don't even know. I don't even know if I'm saying the fucking word right. match. Now, there was a lot of buzz going around about the lawsuit. It didn't go as viral as, say, the Nintendo one with Palworld, but it did do some rounds, and there were tons of creators that were talking about it. Though I kind of wanted to look at the actual lawsuit, so I managed to find it, and I skimmed through it. I didn't intricately take a look at every single thing, but there were some noticeable things from the lawsuit that I kind of wanted to go through with you guys and kind of try to paint the best story that I can for y'all, so you guys kind of understand where this is coming from. Also, keep in mind that everything here is alleged, and I'm going off of specifically what the complaint says. So please do not take everything in this complaint as a fact, just to be absolutely clear. There are obviously some things that I'm gonna believe versus what you believe. I may even put the lawsuit in the description below so you guys can also take a look at it and come to your own conclusions. So yeah, but these are just the most notable things that I saw from the lawsuit. And I think we'll start with the biggest thing, which if this is true, that this is what happened, then yeah, Tencent might be cooked. they might be cooked, flambéed, broiled,
fried hard. It's over.
So let's start from the very beginning. Tencent started development for Light of Motiram back in 2023, in which it sported a very similar look in character and theming to Horizon already. And then, here's what they say happened from here. So they say, in March 2024, at a gaming conference in San Francisco, California, Tencent executives approached Sony with a pitch to develop its own Horizon game in collaboration with Sony Interactive Entertainment. Sony rejected the idea and considered the matter closed. Apparently, Tencent was undeterred by Sony's refusal to license its Horizon intellectual property. Tencent continued secretly developing Light of Motiram, eventually announcing a forthcoming game. Tencent's promotional material bore a strong similarity to Sony's own Horizon promotional material. Now, they then go into more detail about that time when they pitched the idea a lot later on, specifically saying that Tencent had outlined that it wanted the IP so that it can create some kind of mobile game that takes place in the Horizon universe. This game would have been made by Aurora Studios, as they allegedly said that the team were diehard fans of the Horizon IP and had even showed a picture of them playing the game while they were working. Bunch of fucking nerds down there. Their pitch idea, expanding the Horizon, was pitched that it would quote-unquote maintain Horizon's original open world setting, but introduce Eastern aesthetics to the Horizon franchise, and incorporate gameplay elements such as survival and crafting, pet taming, multiplayer game modes, etc. Very similar to games like Palworld that has those same game mechanics. And then they also apparently showed them a picture that has Aloy like standing on the Great Wall of China, and that was pretty much everything. So this is pretty wild because this, if this is true, implies that Tencent sneakily started development of the game as a backup just in case Sony rejected their offer. And then when Sony ended up rejecting the offer, Tencent said, alright bud, let me swipe that whole flow from you. And as implied in the lawsuit, and once again this is according to Sony, but they had never disclosed that they were making Light of Motiram in the first place during them pitching the idea. Which, I mean, fair enough. That would have probably deterred them further, so I mean, it makes sense. What happened after Light of Motiram got announced is that Sony actually went to Tencent to see if there can be any kind of resolution. But then Tencent came with the exact same pitch to license the Horizon IP. So little to say, they were pretty dead set on wanting to do something with the Horizon franchise. And man, did they seem pretty petty from there. Tencent again sought to license the Horizon intellectual property. Sony communicated clearly and unequivocally that it would not license the Horizon assets to Tencent, objected to Light of Motiram, and insisted that it be withdrawn. Tencent had since signaled that it rejected Sony's demands and would forge ahead, releasing a new promotional trailer for Light of Motiram and announcing that in the near future, Light of Motiram will also commence global testing. Tencent has continued to release additional promotional materials, suggesting the game will soon be made available for playtesting. Sony is thus forced to file this action and to seek judicial relief to protect its valuable and hard-earned intellectual property rights in the Horizon franchise. Also, according to Sony, and this is something that I think is kind of crazy, Tencent went ahead and hired one of the composers that worked on the music for Horizon Forbidden West to do the music for Light of Motiram. So the music sounding very, very similar in that trailer. If this is true, it would make sense as to why this would be the case. They got the same nigga who made the music for the last game for this one. Now then, Sony presented Motiram's promotional art multiple times throughout the complaint and showed that they were pretty much the same thing, even down to a very similar font and styling to the logo of Light of Motiram as well. It is damn near the same font. And then they provided more examples later on, which really shows that Motiram very much had the world design one-to-one similar to Horizon. Considering this is what they said at the beginning, I think this is definitely their strongest case of infringement, is that people who casually play video games and don't like autistically look at game presentations, a lot of people could pick up that game, confusing it with Horizon, thinking that it's a new game in the series or new entry in the series, when in reality it's not. And I think this is where, once again, their strongest cases, because these are really confusing. At least with Power World and Pokemon, due to things like font and gameplay, you can't really tell because the two franchises look very different from each other. And obviously the same applies to Schedule 1 and Drug Simulator. But this is a lot different. A lot different in the fact that they look very similar. Now, one of the things that Sony mentions, which I would say is one of the most obvious ways they just completely took everything from the world design of Horizon, was with their grass. Yes, we are going to talk about grass. Sorry. The Light of Motiram promotional material shows that Tencent even incorporated elements from the Horizon franchise into the visual environment of Light of Motiram that don't make sense outside the context of the Horizon franchise. For example, the physical environments in the Horizon franchise prominently feature patches of red grass in which red-haired Aloy hides while hunting machines, camouflage due to her similar hair color. Light of Motiram's environmental design also features patches identical to Horizon's distinctive reed-like red grass, but while Light of Motiram features an Aloy lookalike in promotional materials, the gameplay does not require a character with red hair, so the grass does not need to be red. So Sony's argument here is asking, if this wasn't taken from them, then why have this red grass aesthetic that in Horizon there was a reason for it being there, signaling to the player that that's basically where you can hide in, but in Light of Motiram they don't have that mechanic, so why is the grass red? Now afterwards they highlight the characters once again and show different comparison shots between Aloy and the main character from Light of Motiram, and they also mention that the promotion of Light of Motiram has been by putting this character all over their socials, which they once again link in the lawsuit, and Sony says this is them trying to confuse the consumer into thinking that this is related to Horizon in some way. So it's a strong case overall. Now, while doing my amazing 15 minutes of research, right, I saw some people mentioning that part of Sony's lawsuit mentioned the gameplay aspect of Light of Motiram. Once again, I just want to be clear, I skimmed through the whole document, so I didn't look at it too intensely or anything, but I did read pretty much all the pages, and I didn't see anywhere where they mentioned that they infringed on their gameplay. And this is kind of where people confusingly compare it to Nintendo and Power World, and I'll get more into my opinions on that later. The closest point that I saw this was the red grass thing I talked about earlier, which once again had less to do with gameplay and more asking about why it was included in the game with no narrative significance. And there was also a section where they talked about the focus device in Horizon, saying that in concept, not gameplay, Motiram's device is eerily similar to the device in Horizon. They're not saying that Tencent infringed upon their gameplay, they're saying that Tencent took all of their ideas and aesthetics and looks and applied it to their game, which that is what their main argument is. So I don't really know where people and like people who are like writing articles and stuff are getting them mentioning Tencent copying gameplay from, but that's not what they're suing them for. This is where I think their lawsuit against Tencent differs from cases like the Power World lawsuit and the Schedule 1 investigation, where those two cases are based on solely gameplay that they think infringes on their intellectual property, with Power World having the patents, you know, the throwing the ball and the gliding, and then Schedule 1 being making drugs. Once again, I think that's crazy. In this case, this mostly focuses on the copying of promotional material and settings that the game definitely takes from way too much, allegedly. While you could say that maybe looking at them saying the character's hair is red, oh, who cares? Oh, there are trees in the game, who cares? Oh, there's mechanic animals, who cares? They don't own that. But when you look at everything in totality and you look at the things like the music being similar, and the other things that people pointed out, I won't lie, it looks bad for Tencent, and I don't think I can rally behind it. I'm not gonna hold you. I mean, there is so much that they allegedly took from the Horizon games. It just looks like that game with minor changes in terms of its looks and naming schemes and stuff like that. As much as I'm all for companies taking ideas and either expanding upon them or taking the inspiration in an entirely different direction, it really does not seem like Tencent is doing that here, especially with the added context that, you know, that they allegedly wanted to make a Horizon game. This kind of just seems to be made from spite, and I'm not gonna support that. I'm sorry. And look, do not get it twisted, guys. I am not a Sony glazer. I love shitting on the paperweight console that has no games on it, that people constantly get on their knees and swallow their nut. And trust me, if the claims of infringement was as, in my personal opinion, dumb as the Nintendo and SA games one, I would definitely get behind shitting on Sony. But looking at everything and looking at the lawsuit, I think this is a very different situation, guys. And I won't lie, if Tencent is found guilty on infringing on the property, then I would completely understand, because in my opinion, this is very blatant. While I do agree that companies shouldn't just bully game studios into changing things based on minor game elements that are stupid to patent, I do think that companies still have a right to protect their IPs. And I think this is one of those instances where it makes sense for them to sue Tencent and have them cancel the Motiram project. So we'll see what happens overall. This is still developing, but it is not looking good for Tencent right now, especially since that their response so far has been deleting stuff that Sony is sourcing in their lawsuit. And just to show you guys, now right now we're on the main site of Light of Motiram. This is the Wayback Machine. So you guys can see, right, it says Light of Motiram has all this stuff, and you can scroll down, you see open world, in a world where human civilization has ceased to exist, rivers, grasslands, forests, and you can see all this promotional art for it, right? Authentic survival, you see that. You see boundless crafting, you see that. You see mechanimals, you see them clear as day right here. Over 100 customizable mechanicals await your taming and training. You see here if co-op gameplay, see here is diverse combat, and it just keeps going, right? As you guys can see, now we're on the website later, and you cannot see any of that. So they completely took down this section in their original video, or on the website. And this happened very recently, because while I was researching for this video, I could view that beforehand. And then also you have their YouTube channel. So this is their YouTube channel, right? Once again, on the Wayback Machine, you see Light of Motiram, and as you can see, it says here they use the main character as the promotional, and they have a lot more videos on here. They have a lot of videos here, quite a few. If you go into the channel now, not only did they change the profile picture, which once again complies with one of Sony's demands, but then you see that on videos, there's only 3 videos here, whereas this had all of these. So they deleted the official announcement trailer, they deleted the Outcast Forest gameplay, the dev talk and stuff, they deleted all of that. And as of recent, because there is a slight little update, they had actually recently made changes to their Steam page as well. For starters, they removed any showings of the main character in things like pictures of the promotional art for the game. They also changed the description significantly, taking out any mentions of the enemies of the game, and instead of calling them colossal machines like before, they instead called them formidable bosses. And on top of that, they changed the release date from to be announced to Q4 2027. So they essentially just shadow dropped a official release date for the game. Now, this one's kind of puzzled me, but I would assume that the reason why may be similar to what's going on with Marathon, which is a game that had gotten outed for using someone's art, and the company, whether intentional or not, just directly stole from an artist, and because of that, they have to change all the assets and whatnot. So they delayed the release date to a lot later. I don't know off the top of my head, but it was supposed to come out this year, but instead is being completely revamped. Now, I do think that maybe a similar situation is going on here, where they're going to be removing things and completely changing the character's design and whatnot from Alloy, maybe even changing the enemies. I have no idea. So maybe they're going in that direction, but this is just a speculation of me throwing it out there. I don't know for sure. We'll have to see. Or hell, they may just cancel the project in general. We don't know. So the question is, if they were innocent, then why comply with Sony's demands? I just think it's suspicious. In my personal opinion, it's not looking good for Tencent, and like I said, I don't really support just blatantly copying titles. So what is the lesson here, folks? Well, if you're gonna copy the homework, at least change some of the answers, bro. You gotta get some of them bitches wrong. It is what it is. I'm not the one getting sued, and I'm out. So get out of my house. Leave. Bye.